Okay, everybody, welcome to the latest episode from the Bolt from the Blue podcast. And I'm pretty sure that you know what we're going to talk about. And things are moving quickly. And of course, we had a video that we had to look at tonight. And I've got my two buddies here with me. And the first one that I got with me is a King of the Kickbacks writer and City Committee member, Colin Savage, aka Presswitch Blue. Colin, how are you and how are you feeling?
Good. It's the end. It's Friday evening here, so end of even though it's been a 4-day week, it seems to have been a long one. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we've also got, as you would expect, the very passionate Ray from City Fan TV. Ray, how are you doing?
I'm very well, mate. I'm very well. I was under the false impression that we were here to talk about the City Football Group buying a French club, which is I'm in France at the moment, and you were really interested in my video on that. But I believe we're talking about something else.
Well, I thought that you guys would be impressed by my tweet when the clock struck 12, like not so long ago. I put up a tweet and I didn't get a lot of reaction to it. It was a big picture of Scott Carson saying, he's staying. And I didn't get any big response to that. But
I saw that Chartered Tax retweeted it, and I give you a nice heart as well. Don't put it out that we're callous on the Bolt from the Blue podcast.
But Colin, I did get a very nice retweet from Sid Lowe, the famous Spanish writer, because I put up that picture of Peter Swales with all the staff in the background.
Oh yeah.
And I just said, "Welcome to our loving arms." And Sid retweeted that and said, "What a great photo! What a great photo!"
But it's a great photo, isn't it?
Anyway, Colin, we're going to start with you. Okay, so here is what we know now. Messi has put out a video where he is apparently staying with Barcelona for another season. But my goodness, Colin, it was a scathing attack on Barcelona. And I don't really get it, Cole, because I think if he's gonna have some olive branches held out, it's probably not exactly the way to do it, is it?
Well, I say I've only seen the statement quickly. I've heard bits of it. It's a scathing attack on the way the club is being run, it would seem. And what it seems to me is it's an attempt to set himself and the fans against Bartomeu, who is clearly driving this from an anti-Messi point of view. And it's quite interesting because earlier in the day, what I did see at lunchtime was his father released a statement about this €700 million release clause. And he said that the clause literally says that, I've just got it here, so as literally stated in clause 8.2.3.6 of the contract signed between the club and the player, this compensation, i.e. the €700 million release clause, will not apply on termination of the contract by unilateral decision effective from the end of the season 2019-2020. So it seems that Messi, regardless of this clause about whether he was entitled to leave on a free or not, and this whole issue about June the 10th in the contract, and he didn't, obviously, the season was only just getting started. Back on June the 10th, Barcelona was still in the Champions League. It seems that the €700 million release clause, which was the main risk of doing something, definitely does not apply according to this contract. It seems fairly unequivocal. What we don't know is there's this argument about whether June the 10th is the end of the season, and that would have to require either FIFA or a court case to resolve. So, it's a fairly scathing statement about the way Barcelona has been run. The future for Barcelona. I think he's saying that players have been bought without any direction, any idea of a strategy, from what I gather. And it's a fairly stinging attack on the way the club has been run, as I said. So, but not on the fans or on the club itself as an entity, but on very much against the president and his people.
Ray, we at the moment on the Bolt from the Blue account, we've got 123 people asking for your opinion, and I said, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to give that to you until after Monday because I'm moving apartment and the internet is going to get cut off until then. But luckily, we've got you on, and they're asking for your take. Ray, what do you say?
Well, it's been a topsy-turvy day, and that basically, if you don't understand, that's a special phrase in English. It's been up and down. It's been roundabout, inside out, twisted here and twisted there. We started the day thinking there's a, is he or isn't he? It was like 50-50. There was nothing much really that we could glean from the last 2 days, really, nothing deep down. And then this statement came out, and I've been working. I was telling you guys earlier, I've been working all day long on interviewing journalists and analysts and talking about players. And I did something special on Messi this morning about why City really covet this guy, why they want him, and I thought it was a pretty decent piece of work. And then the thing came out from Messi's camp, I think from his father. The statements that this 700 million euro release.
But Ray, I think wasn't there something before that? Wasn't there the fact that Bartomeu was accused of corruption?
That was last night. Sorry, that was last night. The corruption thing came through as well about Bartomeu.
And he's signing up for this. Oh, unbelievable!
It's crazy. We'll go back. You're going to go back 12 hours or 24 hours to last night, where the Barca gate. We'd heard about the Barca gate scandal, where at that point it had been alleged or purported that he and some of the board had been involved in utilising an outside agency to set up false social media accounts to attack certain figures, and big figures, people like Pep and Xavi, current people like Suarez and Lionel Messi. So, I mean, at the time we saw, could this be true? And it looks like now the police are getting involved with that, and we will obviously wait to see what happens there. So that was last night. So we were thinking, maybe Bartomeu is going to jack it in because he's going to have to deal with the police. He's got a lot of things to deal with. He's got a lot of stuff on his plate right now. And then middle of the day, we had this statement that was basically a letter sent to La Liga saying, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Have you got the right contract? And his father was very specific. It was like clause 8.2.3.6. It was very specific. Said this is wrong or whatever. And he said it didn't exist. And so I thought, right, I've got to go and talk about this. I started talking about it. And then you got the La Liga statement coming very, very quickly. It's like it was pre-prepared. Now, here's one I made earlier. And they said, no, it still exists. And whilst I was dealing with that, then you had the rumours coming through that there was going to be a video coming out. And actually, a lot of people were quoting a journalist I spoke to a few days ago from a Twitter account called Barca Center. And it's a decent sized account with about 140,000 followers. And I chatted with the journalist Axel a few days ago about this whole situation to get a Barca point of view on it. So he said that there was a video coming out, and Messi was saying in that video that he's gonna stay. So that this is, so then the internet's full of that, and I'm Paul, me as a content creator, thinking, what do I do with my video that I've just made and edited and got ready to go out? I can't use it. You feel a bit frustrated with that, and so it's just been crazy. The whole day long has been crazy. With is he, when his father put that letter out, he thought he's gonna leave. He's telling them that his contract, the clause doesn't exist at 700 million euros. You thought he's going to leave, but at the same time, you're getting all this stuff going on in the background that he's going to put out a statement that he's going to stay. And obviously, that's what happened at 6 p.m. UK time, I think it was, or 5 p.m. UK time. He came out with this statement. It was a video with goal, so that's why people knew the video actually existed. Saying that he was going to stay. He was, it's like they were keeping him prisoner. He was being forced to stay, and he said stuff about his family. He had a brutal discussion with his wife. He said when he told her that he wanted to leave, his kids cried. They don't want to leave Barcelona. When I said last week that if he did transfer to City, they wouldn't leave Barcelona. They'd stay. He'd come and train and play at City and fly back on a private jet. And he also said a lot of stuff about Bartomeu. And said, I've been telling him for 12 months I want to leave. They're just plugging in the gaps. When there's a problem, they just, putting like sticking plaster over the cuts and stuff. And he was, and the Bartomeu was always saying, we'll sort it out at the end of the season. You can go, I'll let you go. And he said, at the end, he's not a man of his word. He's, he didn't come out and say, but he's basically a lying toe rag. But that's what he meant. So that's
okay. Let's go over to Colin Savage. And Colin, the statement that Messi made was a searing indictment of what is going on in the upper echelons of Barcelona. And Colin, it's so brainless, because I understand that he said that he doesn't want to provoke any litigation, and he wants to. He says that he wants to go, but they're not allowing him to. He's not. He doesn't want to make waves. But as Sid Lowe said, and as Guillaume Balaghi said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that he has put this sticking plaster on it. This is disastrous for Barcelona, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, what's he going to do? I mean, he hasn't been to training this week. Is he going to go back to training? The ridiculous notion of him playing for a club he's saying basically is a crap club, which is on the road to ruin. You can't see him putting his heart in it. I'm sure he's a professional, but he's made his position clear. He doesn't believe in the club anymore. And, it's like we've possibly all been in that situation. Well, I have, where you're working for a company that you think, oh, this is awful. I really don't want to do this job. And do you put your heart into it? To be honest, you don't. Well, it's like being at school, and when you had a great teacher you really got on with, you really connected with. You work so much harder. Your work was better, as opposed to one who was just insulting all the time, and you just did just enough. So I still can't see him setting everything aside and going back and saying, he said he's stole it, hasn't he? He's not going to go back and say, oh, well, okay, yeah, forget it all. I'll give you a year's great football, and then I'll see. So, it's putting pressure on Bartomeu. That's quite clear. And that's why I say, pretty certain that the €700 million release clause is out of the way. So there's no risk from that point of view. But I still think this saga has got some way to play, because, as you say, it's throwing a bucket full of horse manure at Barcelona. And how can you see him turning out for them under those circumstances?
Yeah, Ray, after he said those words, I mean, how are they gonna? How is he gonna recover from that? And how are they gonna recover from that going into the new season?
They can't reconcile it. There's no way, from what Messi said, you can't reconcile it with the board. The things he said about Bartomeu, and why he doesn't. Look, the reason that it's interesting, the reason why he said he's going to stay. And he's talked to, basically doesn't want to start a legal war. He said that a couple of times. I'd never want to go to war against the club of my life. That's why I'm staying.
Yeah, but Ray, if you're going to say that, then don't say that the president is a disaster. What is that all about?
No, he set his stall out. He set his stall out with the bureaucrats, making that public and official. He set his stall out by not coming to training. He wanted to leave, as my mate Rafa Hernandez says. Messi wanted to join Manchester City, and that should be taken as immense praise for what the club has done over the past 10 years. Maybe next year, but as ever, better to not have any expectations. Messi wanted to come to City. I don't think there's any doubt that he desperately wanted to get out of Barcelona, and it must have torn him to pieces. You can see the issues he had with his wife and his kids, and they were crying and everything else. And he's talked about Bartomeu and said he didn't keep his promises. He said, Bartomeu told me that the only way now, he's saying, the only way to leave was to pay the 700 million clause. That's impossible. But, he feels he's been lied to all the way. There's no trust there. There's no respect there. And we're just waiting for the next installment. It's like, one of these American dramas from the 80s or 90s. And we're just waiting for that. Is the next installment going to be? There's lots of ways this can play out. Is the next installment going to be that Bartomeu ends up getting the boot early, and the new guy comes in who either says to Messi, look, Messi, we've done you wrong. You can go for free, or we'll take some money out of City, because City will pay some money. There's no doubt about that. Or he'll say to Messi, I'll promise you the earth, please stay. We just don't know. As Colin said,
we were actually online trying to figure out what soap drama would this be equivalent to, and the best that Bolt from the Blue followers could come up with was like Dexter. It was like that bad. Colin Savage, let me put you in this hypothetical situation. Imagine you'd gone online and you'd said that you thought that your boss was an idiot. He had mismanaged the whole year, and you're saying that despite that, you're gonna rescind your decision to quit, and you're gonna come back. I mean, how does that work, Colin? How does that work?
I don't know. I mean, I have done that. I have said to my boss, "You are an idiot."
I can believe that.
But I left the next day, which was planned, of course. It wasn't. Well, in fact, no, it did happen to me a couple of times.
But there's no way back from that.
There's no way back. You can't. This is a battle between him and Bartomeu. And if you look at it from a pure financial point of view, as you'd expect me to do, they're paying him, 60 million, 70 million, 80 million, I don't know what the figures are. They will get nothing for him next season. So they're paying, let's say this alleged he's on €1 million a week with all the various deals and probably got other things as well, and a £60 million loyalty bonus or something like that. So they're going to cough up all this money, it's 120 million, something like that, maybe more, and lose him next season, lose him in the summer, unless the new president thinks he can do something. So, but now they've got the choice of, as we've said before, getting 100 million or 120 million for him, and saving that. So saving that 120 million they might be paying out. So basically, it's like 250 million. By saving the 125 million or whatever and getting 120 million for him, they could save themselves 250 million in the next year. And they seem prepared, that the president seems prepared to throw that down the drain. It's crazy to me.
Ray, we would assume that the guys around Messi are not completely dumb, and they're not completely tone deaf, and they understand the ramifications of the things that they're saying, and they know how these things will be received. I'm absolutely flummoxed. I can't get how they imagined that this was going to play. Do you think that Messi went and his father did that without legal advice or PR advice?
Honestly, it's hard to say. We don't know what their innermost thoughts are, obviously. Maybe we should listen to people like Duncan Castles and some other journalists who apparently seem to know what.
I think he's probably got a bit of egg on his face at the moment, right?
Well, slap it on his head, slap it. I'm allowed to say that because I've got no hair as well, so it's not as if I'm making fun of him unfairly.
I'm certainly looking forward to the next episode of that podcast.
So, but the thing is, we don't know what the motivations are. We're just trying to read between the lines and guess like everybody else is. Messi knew, he must have known, and he's taken the advice. His legal advisors are the same legal advisors who Barcelona were using to make this contract in the first place. And obviously, I think we said on the last part, Barcelona gave them the flick once he found out that they were advising Messi. So he must have taken advice, and from their advice, that's where the burofaxes come from. That's what's made it official. From their advice, that's why he's not turned up to training, because that could have been seen to imply that he had started the new season with them when he didn't want to. So it seems that the legal people have been there, but when it's come down to the end of it, where Messi had to push that button and go that little bit further, and I've said this on my channel, he's bottled it. He's done the caca. And right at the last minute, he's chickened out. There's two ways to look at it, obviously. One, if you're being really unfair, to say he's just a coward and a chicken and bottled it. But as I've said several times, it is a very long relationship, and it's very hard sometimes just to easily walk away. And it might take a year or two to actually do that. It's not great from City's point of view because we want him now. We don't want him in a year's time. He's a little bit older and everything else, and we've had to wait, and we've paused what we're doing, waiting for him, which I don't particularly like. But as I said, we don't know what's going through his head exactly. We've got an idea that he's not best pleased, he's not happy. Will that change if Bartomeu's gone at the next election, which he will be gone? Will Messi's mind change again? And say, yes, I will stay because the new guy's promised all this, and he wants to stay. In his heart, Messi wants to stay, but his head is ruling it. and he's in a conflict. I'm sure you guys have been in that situation. Your head is fighting with your heart, and who knows what's is romance better than damn hard ice cold logic? I don't know.
Colin Savage, a very interesting twist on the whole thing financially, because I know you're interested in these things. But what Sid Lowe revealed was that something that a lot of people don't know, and that is that when an outgoing president and his board leaves Barcelona, did you know that they are personally liable for any financial losses that occurred during their reign? And so Sid Lowe said that one of the things that is going to be right at the top of Mr. Bartomeu's mind is that he's got this transfer window and the next transfer window to balance the books. And if he can't do that, when Victor Font, who is the sort of like the new guy who's going to come in with his team, they can actually prosecute them for those losses and reclaim it from them individually, Colin, individually. And I didn't believe this until I heard it from Sid Lowe. Did you know anything about that at all?
I'd heard something about it. I wasn't sure how it worked, to be honest. So yeah, which is kind of, we're going back to what I said before. He's got to balance the books, hasn't he? And why would you risk being personally liable for hundreds of millions of euros potentially when you could basically the net effect of say 250 million euros better off? And
Aizen asked him, is that likely to happen as things stand? And Sid Lowe said, absolutely not. With the whole Messi situation taken out of the equation, it's been a disastrous time, and that's why he just could not understand. I mean, this is Sid Lowe talking. I just cannot understand why they wouldn't take 50 or 100 million euros and smooth this whole thing out. It's absolutely brainless.
It's a willy waving contest, isn't it? To use the polite term. Which is why I think it's still not necessarily over. It seems to be a game of brinkmanship and who blinks first.
Paint me a picture, Colin. How do you think? I mean, everyone is completely swayed by this interview and what they think is going to happen. But paint me a picture about how this might play out in a way that people might not necessarily understand right now.
Well, there's a number of things going on here, I think. I think one is Messi is putting the pressure on Bartomeu. So, do the fans turn on him? Is he using the fans, for example, to force his sale? I'm sure the fans don't want him to go, but, is he putting himself riding over the hill on a white charger, holding a flag, his royal standard, and with the fans behind him? We don't know. So the fans could be putting the pressure on Bartomeu to do something. It could be that, as we talked about, with Bartomeu potentially personally reliable for a considerable sum of money, it could be that by saying that, Messi is forcing him into a corner. Now, I saw a tweet a little while ago about City, or it was the post on Blue Moon, I think. City have forced this situation. I don't think City have had anything to do with this. They've stood back from this because, I've said to other people, the contract is between Barcelona and Messi. It's their dispute to resolve. City's issue has been, if we do anything precipitate, we could be left with a bill for 700 million euros potentially. So City have I don't know what's been going on in the background, and I think City have been talking to Messi, to be honest. I know they've been talking to Jorg Messi for quite a while, a number of years potentially. So that contact's there. So City have perhaps stayed in the background and not forced the issue. Perhaps there's a plan for somehow to force the issue. It seems clear that we said this before. It seems clear that 700 million euro release clause is off the table. That's not an issue. The contract seems to be quite unequivocal about that, according to what Messi's camp say anyway. La Liga and Barca were disputing that. But we know what Javier Tebas is like with release clauses. He's like Horatio Nelson, put the telescope to his bad eye. So there could be a number of things going on, but I suspect one of the main things is to put the ball in Bartomeu's court. Messi said he doesn't want legal action. I don't think this necessarily has to go to court, but it might have to go, I think we said, to FIFA.
Or arbitration.
So is he now, leaving the field clear for City to do something? Because we haven't done anything so far. We've not rocked the boat because, say, this is a dispute between Barcelona and Messi. Is he throwing the ball back at Bartomeu and say, well, okay, I'll stay, but unless you do something to balance the books. Suarez left on a free, and he wants 14 million to buy off the last year of his contract. Vidal's gone. Was it a free? No, Vidal's talking about going. Rakitic has gone to Sevilla. So there's all these players going out, and they've still got Coutinho on the books. Would Bayern be prepared to buy him? I don't know. So maybe Messi just throwing the ball back at Bartomeu and saying, "Yeah, pal, do you feel lucky?" True Clint Eastwood fashion.
Let me just go over to Ray and ask Ray two questions. I think the first one is that, as we all know, we've listened to Pep Guardiola, Ray, for years. When he talks about Messi, he always says that I want him to finish his career at Barcelona. And there was a certain suggestion from one of your contacts that maybe Pep had advised Messi to stay at Barcelona. So that's one thing. And the second point is, Ray, when you put yourself in the position of Khaldoun and Soriano, and what would you think that they would make of this video tonight?
Okay, let's look at Pep first. Pep's a romantic at heart, look, in his heart is Barcelona. He's obviously extremely brassed off with the people in charge there. He's unhappy with the politics, but Barcelona's his club as well. So asking me whether he did or he didn't, no one's going to prove he did or he didn't say that. Messi, wanting Messi to say that, I can understand that. I think in his heart he might want that, but in his head, if you offered him 3 years ago Messi at the age of 30, Pep would have been beating down the door to get him. I have no doubt about that, because he makes any team in the world stronger. How will Khaldoun and Soriano be looking at this? Look, I think there'll be some people at City that really, really, really wanted Messi for various different reasons. I look back at someone like Sheikh Mansour. I don't think he watches too much football. I'm just guessing here. But if he was watching any football, you'd think he'd watch big games like the Champions League final in mid to late 2000s. Seeing people like Messi, and he would covet him. He'd want him. He wanted us to play like Barcelona. We've got the manager. We've got Ferran. We've got Chiqui, and we're playing that style of football. And Messi would have been the cherry on the top of the cake. So I think there's people there who want him. There's others who will look at him, and it might be the finance people, and say he's going to bring a shed load of money to Manchester City. There's a talk of when Ronaldo at 33 went to Juventus, he brought in something like 50 million euros or pounds in that first season of extra income to Juventus just because of it was Ronaldo. And I think Messi could, quite conceivably bring in 100 million pounds to City because he's that big a player. He's that big a brand. And the brand is important. Soriano is all about, I joked about the City Football Group who own Manchester City buying a club in France. And it's all about expansion and domination. Getting Messi puts the Manchester City brand into the stratosphere. Can you imagine? I've had so many people contact me in the last week who are Barcelona fans, but they're only Barcelona fans because of Lionel Messi. They said if he comes to City, and some of them have said, I want him to come to City because of all the disrespect, what Bartomeu's done to Messi over there. Can you imagine what that'll... I mean, some of us laugh about it or deride, social media and stuff like that. But can you imagine what will happen to the Manchester City social media stuff? It will go crazy. And the money... It'll come down to money. The money these days is not from your local fan. I try to tot up how much would I spend on Manchester City as a local fan. There's not much more they can squeeze out of local fans. I buy my season card. I buy a couple of shirts every season. I go to the Champions League home games and cup games. I might spend £800 a year on Manchester City. A foreign fan who might come to just one game in their lifetime is going to spend as much as I spend in a year on one game. They're going to buy a package deal. They're going to fly in, get a guaranteed ticket, go on a stadium tour, buy lots of merchandise because it's their one in a lifetime pilgrimage to City. And Messi would invite more of them to come because they'd be desperate to come and see Messi play at the home of City. So they'll bring a lot more money. So I think it's not just what he can do on the pitch, and I think he's still obviously got a lot to offer on the pitch, but it's what he does off the pitch. So some of the finance people, they want him to come. And, maybe Soriano, he's really keen because he can see how this will blast City into the stratosphere. And overseas, our fan base will, we've seen that, United are miles ahead, Liverpool are miles ahead, Chelsea, Spurs, loads of clubs are miles ahead. And I kind of, to finally say this, I did this on a stream today. I said, if you just look at YouTube, for an instance, and not even the official one, the fan accounts, the biggest, I think, Man City fan YouTube account is 40 or 50,000 subscribers. That's nothing. You've got Arsenal Fan TV or AFTV, as you know now, with 1.2 million subscribers. You've got all the other big ones, Tottenham ones. They've got several with hundreds of thousands. You've got the same with other Arsenal ones and Chelsea and Liverpool and Man United. And City are languishing. So I think this will really push everything into a totally different level. So, yeah, I think they still want him. And if he was to come next season, I think some people would still want him at City next season.
Well, let me go back to Colin Savage. We just actually had a listener comment saying, draw Colin out. And I think that what that means is, Colin, let's imagine that the guys at Barcelona are not idiots. I know that's pretty hard to do. Let's imagine that Bartomeu, as a successful businessman, is not a complete idiot. What do you think is his game plan here?
I don't know. Honestly, Bartomeu, I don't know what his game plan is.
That sounds like, I don't know, Jeff. I don't know, Jeff.
Well, I don't. The only thing I can think...
They've got to have a strategy, though, Colin, right?
There's two things. One is not to be seen as the president who let Leo Messi go.
That's very emotional, but let's get to the numbers.
The second is potentially, if he's going to go, then get as much money as I can for him. And that's what.
And that doesn't work either in this scenario.
Not, which is why I'm struggling to see what he's game planning, unless this is all a bit of an elaborate charade to draw City out in some way and make us come in with an offer. I don't believe there's been any contact between City and Barcelona.
It's the only thing I can think of, Colin. The only thing I can think of, I'm racking my brain, is that they didn't think that City were going to come up with a transfer fee, and it was to draw them out. Now, the only thing the reason that doesn't work, Colin, is that if he said that he's going to see out the season, then he goes on a free. So I just like, for the life of me, I don't get it.
I don't. I simply don't get it either. I just can't see unless. The only thing I can think of is it's some sort of scorched earth policy. He knows he's not going to win the election in March, and he's just going to make life as difficult as possible for the club.
Colin, sorry. You said he doesn't want to be the person who let Messi go. Maybe that's scorched earth for the next guy, Font, who will be the man who let Messi go, because he'll be in place before the end of the season. And if Messi does leave, it's not on.
That's the only thing I can think of, Ray, that he's rolling it over and Font will be the guy to let Messi go, right? I
mean, look, the crowd, when this first came out, they stormed Camp Nou. They had the gates there. You could see hundreds of fans, I think, trying to get in, and I think they let them in the end. So there are a lot of angry fans out there, really angry fans. And most of it's directed at Bartomeu. And I think some of it, he's tried to push it back on Messi. So Messi takes the flak, which he's been doing for the last 12 months already. And he's tried to do that. But I think people can see through it, obviously, with the Barca situation.
Apart from shirking responsibility and shifting it over to the next president, I'm gonna try to persist with this a little bit. And see if you can come up with some kind of theory about what the hell Bartomeu thinks he's doing.
Well, I said one of the theories was he wants it somebody else to take the flak, and Colin's idea of trying to bring Man City out. Now, I said a few days ago that there's no way City have briefed it, or they've let it leak out, okay, to some journalists that they cannot afford to pay a transfer fee and his wages. That's come out, and I don't know, but my feeling is that's been leaked out, and City have done it for a reason. Because let's be honest, they don't want to pay a transfer fee. But talking to Colin and the stuff we've done, City can pay a transfer fee. We think the numbers stack up, and if the transfer fee was somewhere in the region of a package of about 100 million euros or 100 million pounds, maybe a shade higher, I think City can afford it. I really do believe City can afford that. It's not going to be straightforward, but I think they can do it. But yeah, why don't you pretend to be a pauper? Why don't you pretend to be a pauper to avoid having to pay a fee, or have it as low as possible? So maybe Bartomeu was trying to draw City out, or to even get Messi to hand in a transfer request, which he's not really done. He said, "I'm free to leave," which is not the same as a transfer request. We're splitting hairs here. But we just don't know. I mean, he's just a bit blitzkriegish. He's just shooting in every different direction and hoping he's going to land a punch, like a boxer at the end of a fight. He's lost, the previous 11 rounds. He's in the last minute of the fight, like the last few months of his tenure, and he's just throwing haymakers and hoping that one of them is going to connect and be a knockout punch. When nobody knows what he's doing. Bartomeu is going to go down as must be one of the worst presidents in Barcelona's history. Nothing he can do now is going to change that, and maybe he's just trying to screw Barcelona over. I just don't get it.
Colin, this is very interesting because, of course, Messi has his lawyers and advisors, and they sent in the burofax. We all have finally learned what a burofax means, and made this declaration. And it seemed that when that was received by people at Barcelona, it was rebutted very quickly, and the reports coming out with indecent haste were that Jorge Messi had folded very, very quickly, and there were reports that he was being equivocal with journalists who were asking him questions. It doesn't seem that they had any kind of a plan here, does it?
Who, the Messi camp or Barcelona?
Yeah, the Messi camp.
We don't know. They were quite adamant that the release clause had expired.
Unless they're playing 4D chess with us and we just don't get it.
Well, that's possible, yeah. But it could come down to
4D chess.
It could come down to Messi's personal view. I mean, he talked in that interview about his wife and kids being upset when they heard he might be leaving. Maybe that played on his mind. But I do think there's a game of chess going on here. So, if whenever the transfer window closes, October the 5th, is it? Whenever that comes round, if he's still not Manchester City, then I'll believe it's not going to happen this summer or this window. So, but January is another. He can make an agreement with us then. So let's see what happens then, because then we know January is totally in the clear. But I'm still not convinced that there aren't a few more, like a chess game, there aren't a few more moves.
Ray, when we have been listening to all of the supposed in the nose, like Graham Hunter and Sid Lowe, they keep saying this one thing again and again, and they keep saying, I can't get inside Messi's head. Well, this is what I'm going to do with you, Ray. I'm going to ask you as a human being to try to get inside Messi's head and ask you what you think is going on there and what do you think that his goals are.
I think I've said this a few times. I think he is desperately unhappy. He's in a relationship. He's been there 20 years. You've got to remember that. And it's like any relationship, a marriage, or with a partner or with a job, it can be very, very difficult to move on. It can be very, very difficult to leave. And it can take time. And you can keep coming back thinking, yes, I'm going, and then lacking that little bit of resolve to make that final leap. And I think that's where Messi is. He's deeply unhappy. He wouldn't even countenance leaving Barcelona if that was the case. He wouldn't have done the burofax if that was the case. He wouldn't miss training if wasn't the case. So he wants to leave, and plenty of journalists have said so. You don't know, obviously, the veracity of those comments, but I think he wanted to move on. He'd had enough. The last couple of seasons, he's not been happy. This season, especially, he's not been happy. I mean, come on. How can you be happy if you get humiliated by Liverpool in the Champions League the other season? And if that's a humiliation, what do you call an 8-2 defeat by Bayern Munich? And
I get that, Ray, but my goodness, he was talked out of it so easily.
I don't think he's been talked out of it so easily. There's emotions. It's not just, he's not thinking with his head. He's thinking with his heart as well. His emotions are at play. Yes, his kids are unhappy. That does affect you. How it affects your kids affects your decision making. I'll give you a very quick example. People know I'm in France. We just come back to France. We needed somewhere to live. We've been away for 2 years. We saw a flat in the town where we used to live. It's a very, very nice flat. Then we saw a flat in a town 15 minutes away, which is bigger. It's got more amenities. It's got a proper main line on a good rail track, on a good railway station. It's got lots of activities. It's a lot more going on. And it's a bigger flat. It costs a few more quid, but it's a really nice flat. It's better for the kids. It's got an extra bedroom so they don't have to share. So much going for it. And when my wife told my kids that we've got the flat in the town that they used to live in, they were so happy because it was tugging at the town tugs at their heartstrings because it's where all their mates were. It's where they grew up. And Messi's the same. Barcelona tugs at his heartstrings, so he's finding it extremely difficult to break away. But I think the next bad thing that happens, that will hopefully be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and he'll just say, "That's it. I can't do this anymore," because it's got to be playing with his head. It's got to be inside his head, and it must be debilitating. And how can, like Colin said, how can he focus? How can he give his all next season? So I don't think it's over. There's lots of twists and turns. We've got several weeks left before the end of the transfer window. 5 weeks to go. We've seen a lot has happened in the last 24 hours, and a lot more can happen in those 5 weeks. So I just think, we don't know. Is Messi waiting for City to come out and say, we're going to put a bid? Is Bartomeu waiting for City to come out and put a bid? Because another thing I'm thinking about, Bartomeu doesn't want Messi to go on a free. And if it does go to court or something, or they genuinely, there's no £700 million release clause and it's genuinely on a free, he doesn't want that because wants the money. So is he trying to say, too much at play?
Let's go over to Colin Savage for the final word. Colin, there have been quite a few people on social media who have reminded us that Messi's got a form for this. I mean, he quit the Argentinian national team, and then 2 weeks later he went back did a U-turn on that decision and rolled it back. I think the only thing that I can come up with when I'm thinking about this from a purely strategic business and financial point of view is that maybe, okay, here's my theory. You know that everyone thinks that Messi runs Barcelona and makes all the decisions about who the managers are and all the rest. I'm not exactly convinced by that, but what may be the case is that he has the same exercise of control over the people who advise him, and he is, as Ray said, operating on his emotions and his heart. And I'm just trying to work this out, and I'm basically thinking that these guys are making it up from one point to another. I mean, is there anything in that, do you think?
I don't know, to be honest. We've heard all the stories about Messi's level of control. It was a hat-trick job in the Athletic on Jorge Messi, his father, which painted him out as a fairly unpleasant guy who was only interested in money. But who knows? I mean, if he were to come to City with perhaps 2 or 3 years, then he's not going to be running anything particularly. So I don't know. It all seems part of the campaign, because Barcelona, of course, hired one of these social media companies or social media companies to trash him. you think, well, why would you give anything to a club like that? It just seems crazy.
And the funny thing is, Colin, when in the middle of all of this drama, when we heard that Bartomeu was being accused of paying a lot of money for social media influencers, and by the way, quoting Sid Lowe, he said that one of the interesting things about that detail was that Barcelona paid more than 5 times what you would normally expect to pay for those kinds of services. This, I think, guys, I'm thinking of just titling this podcast a head scratcher, because we can't really figure it out, guys. I'm sorry that we couldn't give you any resolution on it, but Colin, I mean, in the midst of everything, when you got these reports of Bartomeu being accused by the Catalan police of corruption, if that didn't make him, or if that didn't give him pause, what the hell would?
I just don't know.
It's
incredible,
crazy.
isn't it? Obviously, it's a long way from being accused of doing something to having done it. Although there's talk about this for a little while, that he'd been personally profiting from deals.
Yeah.
But I mean, the whole place appears rotten, doesn't it? And you've got to look at, from Messi's point of view, yes, he's been there pretty well 20 years now. 2001, I think he first time for them as a youngster. So you can understand he's got ties to the place. He's lived there. His kids have been born and brought up there. You can understand his ties to the place, but it's looking at increasingly like a barrel of rotten apples, isn't it? Barcelona.
It really is, yeah.
Chaka.
Well, guys, I think that we don't have any conclusions on this podcast, but what I'm going to do is, just to finish it off, I'm just going to throw it over to our 2 experts and just ask them to give their final thoughts as we are here at this particular time, and we'll see what happens. Let's go over to Ray. And Ray, very difficult question to ask you, but yeah, just summarize where you are in your mind about this.
I'm emotionally all over the place because, once the juggernaut started and it looked like it could happen, obviously I was very excited. Now there's lots of spanners in the works, and I've gone from last week 6 out of 10 to a few days ago 9 out of 10. I've dropped down to 3 out of 10. And then I've said I'm still saying 50-50. There's still twists and turns. There's money to be made out, somewhere. There's always money in these things, and it could simply be. I'm trying to see where do I feel is the strongest thing that can happen, and it could simply be Bartomeu wants City to come out and say here's 100 million, and that way he can guarantee getting 100 million. Whereas if he lets Messi go on a free, he gets nothing. So maybe that's what he's after. That's me clinging on to a little bit of hope that Messi could still finally end up where he deserves to be, at the best team in the land and all the world.
Well, let's give Colin Savage the final word and say, Colin, how do you feel about this? Because I know that you're a wily old fox, and you probably wouldn't have been seduced by this whole thing right from the beginning. I'm sure that you had your tongue fairly in your cheek when you were reading these things. But Colin, give us your final thoughts, and if you can, I know that you're as nonplussed as the rest of us, but you did say that you thought that there would be more twists and turns. Any idea about what possible twists and turns there could be?
In a word, no.
Okay, that's clear.
I just don't know. Could it? Well, perhaps when things calm down a bit in a few days, next week, we'll get a better view of things. But I still haven't given up the possibility that Messi may be a City player this coming season.
Yeah, I think that's what we all hope, and we think that's the only thing that really makes sense. But guys, if you're listening to the Bolt from the Blue podcast, we've been right on out of it right after the news broke, and I think the conclusion is that myself and Colin and Ray, who've been following City for more than 40 years, are a little bit nonplussed. That's my favorite word of tonight, guys, nonplussed. So we're just going to have to wait and see. I think that there are probably going to be all kinds of things coming out from that. I mean, the video and the responses that you saw on social media are definitely only the beginning of this. We're going to hear a lot more about it, but that's where we are right now, guys. So we did our best to give our reactions very, very quickly. I'm not even going to spend a lot of time editing out coughs and splutters. I'm going to put this out right away because you need it, and I think we need it for some kind of healing. Anyway, before we finish off, let's just thank our two contributors. And you've been listening to City Fan TV, Ray, and Ray is running an amazing channel over there at YouTube, which is the City Fan TV YouTube channel, and that is where you have to go because Ray puts these videos out, my goodness, every hour or every 2 hours as the mood takes him. So, Ray, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, Mike, to finish the day in the company of two very good friends.
And also, guys, I think that probably you're going to be hearing a lot more from Colin Savage because the finances of this whole thing don't make sense. And I'm pretty sure he's going to get a few calls to ask him what he thinks the hell is going on. And I think that none of us know, but probably after a day or two, he will, have figured it out or have got some information to give you. But thank you so much, Colin Savage, for coming on.
It's a pleasure. I can't top what Ray said.
That's beautiful, guys. Well, we'll leave it here for now, and we'll say to you, as we always do, thank you so much for listening. Have one on us. Have a stiff one on us after all this, guys. And up the blues.